Shane Pinto and the Senators have come to an agreement. Auston Matthews' injury adds to the Leafs' woes, while Major League Soccer's announcement changing their schedule could have an impact on the NHL. Plus, who and where are the biggest games to watch this weekend? All that and more on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday, everyone, and thanks for making Locked On NHL your first listen every day and for making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. I am Rachel Donner from Locked On Flyers. I'm here each and every Friday with Gil Martin of Locked On Islanders. You can find us on YouTube or anywhere you listen to podcasts to get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, Gil, before we get into the whole Major League Soccer announcement and our games to watch this week, we have some more Leafs drama to talk about here, to add insult to injury, literally here. Auston Matthews is banged up, and they're saying he's only going to be out for a few games here, but for a team that's already in a bit of a spiral, like, what's the impact here?
Yeah, I mean, this team's already kind of reeling, and then to lose one of your best offensive weapons, if not your best offensive weapon, I guess, this is sort of a character test for the Toronto Maple Leafs, because they can take the woe is me attitude, or they can come back and regroup and sort of fight together. And guess what? This is after a collision with Nikita Zadorov, who has been known to, lay a few hits that kind of cross the line at times.
Never.
No, never. Not at all. I mean, look, he's good at what he does, but that's what he does. So, I think this is a character test for the Toronto Maple Leafs that, maybe it helps them, or maybe they spiral even further, below expectations.
Yeah, it's been tough for them because, they've had to, first off, play the Bruins a couple of times recently, who are playing very well, right? And then they also lost to the Carolina Hurricanes recently. So, they had 3 wins in a row, then 3 losses in a row, then these injuries. Scott Lawton is officially on IR at the moment. And, I think there's a lot of pressure there to maybe shake things up a little bit. And, will this team make a panic move here?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And then, goalie Anthony Stolarz also injured Tuesday, and he is unavailable for their game Thursday against the LA Kings. No timetable for his return. So the injury bug hitting the Leafs hard right now, and really across the lineup.
Yeah, and I actually got to see Joseph Woll play in his conditioning assignment, because the Marlies happened to be playing the Lehigh Valley Phantoms, the Flyers affiliate. So I watched that game, and he definitely looked rusty. I will say that.
Well, that's why you do the conditioning stint, right? I mean,
yeah. So, it's a real interesting challenge here. And I don't know that the Leafs are a team that make panic moves. They sometimes make, confusing moves at the trade deadline or in the off season, but they're not a team to make a rash decision. So, we'll see how long this Matthews injury lasts and what the impact is, and if they can kind of crawl out of the basement of the Eastern Conference here, which isn't that far down, right? Because, even the bottom of the Eastern Conference is right around 500. So,
I think
it's not insurmountable for the Leafs.
No, I mean, going into Thursday's games, what was it? 3 points separating sixth place in the conference from 14th place in the conference. So, yeah, I mean, you win 2 in a row and you're right back where you need to be. It's going to be a heck of a race. But the Leafs are one of those teams that people expected not to be in the muck and mire of that race.
Right, exactly. They should be in the top 3 in their division, but, one of the other teams in that division who wants to try and make a mark is the Ottawa Senators. They've had a time of it as well, but one of the things that was hanging over their head, so to speak, was the Shane Pinto contract, and now that is taken care of with a 4-year, $7.5 million extension. What do you think of that deal?
The key to me is the 4 years because they were offering Pinto 8 and they
Mhm.
couldn't agree on it. There are a lot of players recently who want the shorter term. And I think the reason is obvious. The cap keeps going up. And, if you sign a top of market deal for 8 years, by year 3, you're not even going to be close to top of market. So the players, especially the younger players or players in their 20s, let's say, they just want to keep the term shorter so they can re-up at the higher rate in 4 years in the case of Shane Pinto. But I think this is a good deal for both Pinto and the team.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting. I'm in no way, shape, or form comparing Connor McDavid to Shane Pinto here, but the shorter term, there is something to this, right? Where these guys want to be able to get a bigger payday, but I think with Shane Pinto, it is a risk on his part as well, and I think with Ottawa, sometimes having mixed results here, and I don't think they're performing as well as they would like to be or were expecting themselves to be this season so far. Maybe getting this done will help free Pinto a little bit more, but he's been one of their top guys this season, so it's a matter of the other guys around him getting up to snuff here.
Yeah, and I mean, I think from a fan standpoint, not having those 7 and 8 year contracts for some of these better players probably is good because so many players they sign that 8 year contract and then the play level kind of drops a little bit because they're so secure. They're going to make 7, 8, $10 million a year for the next 7 years, and the urgency kind of goes away. And with a 4 year kind of prove it deal where he needs to be at the top of his game to get that next big deal as the cap goes up, I think that benefits the team in that way. Keep them hungry.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it'll be, interesting to see again how, Ottawa's season turns out and, what that means for the rest of the team around. But it does feel like Shane Pinto in particular was meant to be with this team for an extended period of time.
Yeah, I think so. As much as I, would have loved to see him come to Long Island, where he's originally from, uh, makes sense that Shane Pinto is an integral part of the Ottawa Senators and that he should stay there.
Yeah. Now, one of the teams that's at the opposite end of the worry scale here is the Colorado Avalanche. They are off to a tremendous start this season, as we've been talking about on this show throughout the weeks. But Scott Wedgwood has been a huge part of that, right? And he was supposed to be the backup here, but he's had to take on the full-time responsibility, and he's earned himself a contract extension, but just for 1 year here. And is this we still don't know if Wedgwood is a solution here long term, or is this one of these short-term deals, do you think?
It might be both. Quite honestly. I mean, look, Wedgwood is not a kid. He's 33 years old.
Yeah.
And maybe that had something to do with Colorado's reluctance to go longer term. But I mean, he's 10-1-2 right now with a 2.26 goals against average, a 9.13 save percentage. He is a big reason that the Avalanche only have one regulation loss right now.
Yeah, I mean, given that, it's obvious that, he would have the most wins in the NHL at this point as well. He's got 10 of them already in this very, very young season where, some guys may not have even gotten 10 starts yet, let alone, 10 wins here. And, it seems like they wanted to stick with him, but they just didn't really have any urgency to put pen to paper until now. But obviously, with the Blackwood injury, I think it becomes much more important to have stability in that and to have your now de facto number one goaltender have nothing to worry about from a contract perspective and focus on the play on the ice.
Yeah, and I think to take it a step further, with the injury situation, with the way he's playing, you didn't want him to be a lame duck. You don't want that whole thing coming up at the trade deadline. Oh, is he going to stay? He doesn't have a contract. Now, fans, all of their teams know he's not available at the trade deadline. And he's going to be a Colorado Avalanche for at least one more season.
Yeah, I would think so. Now, the other option for the Avalanche is to sell high, right?
Right.
On him, but I certainly don't think they will, given the circumstances here. But you know, I think the more interesting aspect of it is that you know what happens when Blackwood returns eventually down the road. What's the competition there like?
Well, that's what we call in hockey a good problem.
It is a good problem to have. A maybe not so good problem to have for the NHL is Major League Soccer's decision to change their annual schedule starting in 2027. We're going to talk about what that is and what the impact could be on the NHL coming up next. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. And that is why there is Monarch. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. And if you put off organizing those finances, Monarch is for you. It does all the heavy lifting. You can link your accounts in minutes. You can see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending. You'll finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Monarch even helps you notice an inefficient investment allocation. You can discover forgotten 401ks from past jobs. You'll save even more money, which you can then turn around and reinvest. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarch.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. All right. So as we just teased, the big announcement from Major League Soccer saying that they are going to move their calendar to the kind of late summer through early spring timing, beginning in 2027. I think could have some interesting implications for the NHL because right now we have a calendar that allows people to really be fans of both and attend games to both, right? And you look at the timing of when season ticket money might be due. You look at the broadcast deals, you look at all of that. Though there will be starting in 2027 a lot more overlap between the MLS calendar and the National Hockey League's calendar. Now, is it entirely overlapping? No. Major League Soccer will start in late July, and they will have a winter break from sometime in December through early February, which is to some degree like the meat of the NHL season. So that's a good thing, right? But that being said, there's still like your holiday breaks in the NHL to some degree. And so, it's kind of hit or miss in terms of this overlap here, but the impact will be there in terms of eyes on the game nonetheless.
It probably will be, and it'll be interesting to see how big an effect it ends up having both on MLS and on the NHL. I mean, MLS is predominantly an outdoor game, while the NHL is indoors. I understand why MLS is moving their schedule to be more in sync with international soccer. That's going to help them with contracts and player movement and all of that. But as far as the NHL is concerned, I mean, there's some overlap now, but not the same amount by any stretch.
Right. And, you have sort of the same thing right now with MLS as you do with baseball, right? Where the playoffs and the finals are like heating up kind of in the first few weeks of the NHL season. That's how it's been, right? And so while the NHL is just beginning in the regular season games, and those games aren't necessarily as important, so it's kind of easy for fans to make the priority decision about what to watch. But you look at a calendar where the playoffs and MLS Cup are in May, that's in the heart of the NHL playoffs, right?
Yeah, you'll have the MLS playoffs and the MLS Cup going almost head to head with probably the conference final round in the NHL. Now, the NHL is moving their schedule, back a week? They're going to start a week earlier.
1 week. Yeah.
Yeah. So they'll start now in late October late September or very early October. It will be interesting. It really will be interesting. And, TV networks also, obviously, especially in the United States, are going to play a role here because you'll have conflicts and, both on a national TV scale and then the local sports networks that cover most home games for teams. There may be issues there as well.
Yeah, it is interesting because ratings for the NHL and MLS are very similar, or have been over the last several years, and there are numbers that have shown that Major League Soccer has stronger ratings than the NHL. But again, it's been at different times of the year, right? And MLS has had less competition because it's been just baseball, right? For the most part, right? Which is a different animal than having, basketball and soccer and hockey all at the same time is going to be a lot different. But MLS broadcasts, for instance, that were on Fox or FS1, the soccer is getting 400,000 viewers and hockey's getting 350,000 viewers, according to some recent data, right? So that's where I think the question comes into play. And I also think that the MLS streaming package is a little bit more consolidated. So it's easier, I think, for MLS fans to get all of MLS or their team or whatever in an easier to digest package that's been more affordable than the NHL package. That's for sure.
So then the question becomes, does the NHL step up and improve its accessibility? Because
are they going to have to is the big question.
You would hope. Because look, you can get almost every game on ESPN Plus except for your local market, which is so frustrating for a lot of fans who want to watch their local team, or worse yet, they're blacked out because a team close to their market is blacked out where they live. So, it hopefully inspires the NHL to improve their package as well.
Right. And, looking at the streaming packages out there, looking at some numbers that, say that the season pass for MLS that's on Apple TV Plus, right, from last year has between 1 million and 1.5 million subscribers to that package, right? Now, if you look at the NHL streaming package, they have 700,000 to 900,000 subscribers, so significantly less. And we know soccer is getting more and more popular. And so the NHL is going to be challenged to change things, to make things more affordable and more accessible. I think blackouts are going to be a huge thing that comes up with their broadcast deal.
And it is something that has frustrated fans for a long time. And if this is the reason that the NHL tries to fix this, the fans can win.
Yeah, I think that could be the end result here, is that things get better for hockey fans in the grand scheme of things. I also think it's going to be interesting to see how the demographic of hockey versus soccer fans develop in this calendar, because, you know, MLS is definitely more popular than hockey in terms of younger viewers.
Yeah, and over time, those younger viewers become older viewers, and then will their children follow their footsteps and be more into MLS than NHL? It is an ongoing thing, and it is a challenge for most likely Gary Bettman's successor, whoever that's
Oh
going
yeah.
to be, to try to, you know, get hockey more attention from the younger generation.
Right. And, you know, again, with the alignment of MLS to the international calendar, then you get all these opportunities for additional soccer events to become more popular in the US, because the international breaks will be at the same time. And you will see these international friendlies have a stronger importance. We'll get to see perhaps more high profile players want to play in Major League Soccer, because it'll be on that same calendar and they don't have to worry about international conflicts. It makes their training calendars a lot easier. I mean, there's so many benefits to this for soccer as a whole that, you know, it is going to be a huge challenge for hockey here.
You mean, you know, international soccer stars will come here before they hit 40? I mean,
Maybe. Could be. Could
yeah.
be. But yeah, I think, you know, the NHL is going to really have to step up their game, so to speak, and make things more appealing for their fans, especially younger ones, leading up to this change in 2027. So they do have a little bit of time to plan for it here.
And hopefully they don't wait and get out in front of this. And again, the more they can do to be fan friendly, the better.
One of the things they're trying to do is play more games overseas from North America, which is again creating a global nature to the game. We're going to talk about that as part of our big games to watch this weekend, coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by Drip Drop. When I'm hydrated, everything just works better. My focus, energy, mood, even my skin. That's why I've been using Drip Drop. It's doctor-developed hydration that keeps me running at full power no matter what my day looks like. Drip Drop isn't your average sports drink. It delivers 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading brands, using a science-backed formula trusted by medical professionals, firefighters, and over 90% of top college and pro teams. I like using Drip Drop as part of my daily routine. I'll mix a packet in the morning and then again before I go swimming to help me prevent that midday slump. And hydration has now become non-negotiable for me. Drip Drop helps me feel sharper, calmer, and honestly just better overall. Right now, Drip Drop is offering podcast listeners 20% off your first order. Go to dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONNHL for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard and keep your body and mind performing at their best with Drip Drop.
Hockey season is well underway, and nothing beats being in the arena for those games. But let's be real, getting tickets can sometimes be a total headache between waiting in online queues, surprise fees, and prices that can jump right before checkout. It's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team, let's say the Flyers. That is where Game Time comes in. It's the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. Plus, you can see exactly what the view is going to look like from your seat before you buy, with their all-important in-app seat view feature. They even have zone deals, which are a game changer. You pick the section, Game Time picks your seats, and you save big. You can find NHL tickets for under $25. And I recently used Game Time to grab seats for a concert, and it could not have been simpler. I had great seats in minutes. Take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket go? Well, I alluded to the international game that hockey is trying to establish in the NHL here, and the global series is part of that. And we've seen a bunch of games over in Europe over the last several years. This is no different. And this year we have a bunch of yellow teams going to a country with a yellow flag. I guess that was the theme that they decided here. But
Color coordinated series.
they did. So the Pittsburgh Penguins are facing the Nashville Predators twice this weekend over in Stockholm in Sweden. On Friday, it's at 2 p.m. Sunday, 9 a.m. Eastern. And I think when they announced this matchup, we thought it was going to, be kind of a boring contest between two lower end of the spectrum teams. But, the Pens have changed the narrative on that, right?
They have. They are doing pretty well. They enter the weekend with a 9-5-3 record, and getting a couple of wins overseas, or let's say 3 points out of 4, would really continue to boost their confidence and make them think that they really do have a shot to sustain this fast start.
Yeah, it's been really interesting because I think one of the things that has plagued Pittsburgh over the last couple of years is inconsistent goaltending, right? And they're actually getting really good performances in net across the board here that maybe we didn't expect. Whereas, you look at the other side and, maybe you don't expect like Vezina caliber kind of goaltending from Jussi Saros, but I think you're expecting a little bit better from him.
Yeah, he's been in a rough situation. And look, at what point does the seat under Barry Trotz start to get a little warm over in Nashville?
Well, the problem is that Barry Trotz has to decide how warm the seat is,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, we've often talked about Nashville being a candidate for the first coach firing of the season and Andrew Burnett. And then at the opposite end of things, Dan Muse, who's a first-time NHL head coach, is like off to the races here. So, will getting out of Dodge, so to speak, help the Nashville Predators get their footing back here?
Yeah, it could. You sort of clearing the slate. You get a different perspective on things. Change of scenery could be a change in results. They need to do something because they are off to another disappointing start, and they're falling behind already in a very tough division.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, one of the big matchups this weekend is the Boston Bruins, who are off to a generally surprising good start against the juggernaut that is the Montreal Canadiens. And man, this rivalry is, I think, in really good shape this year. And maybe we wouldn't have thought so to start the season.
It's a classic Original Six rivalry, a longtime division rivalry. And as of right now, these two teams are tied for first place in the Atlantic Division, with Montreal having one game in hand. So I love when a classic rivalry like this gets revived, and when both teams are doing well, that's when the rivalry is at its strongest. So I'm looking forward very much to this game. And who thought the Bruins would be in this position at this point in the season?
Yeah, it's really interesting because statistically, these teams are very, very similar right now in terms of, you look at how their power plays are doing. The Habs are in 5th, the Bruins are in 7th, not too far off. Their penalty kills are both not as good, but the Bruins are in 12th and the Habs are in 14th, right? It's just like there's so many parallels here with the stats here, and I just find it to be a really good time, and I am absolutely excited to watch this game in particular on Saturday evening in the early evening slot at 7 p.m. But then you have an opportunity to head out west for the late game on the East Coast, but prime time out west for the Sharks and Kraken. This is the teal battle, apparently, here. But, again, you have a team that maybe wasn't expecting to be, that good this year in the Seattle Kraken, and a team with a lot of young talent that also wasn't expected to take a huge leap forward, but a leap forward nonetheless in the San Jose Sharks, with so many young good players to watch here. So, like, who wins this out?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those games that I think is going to tell us a little bit more about both of these teams.
Yeah.
And, I think both of them are kind of playing with house money this year, where they're exceeding expectations. And Lane Lambert doing a great job out in Seattle, and the Sharks. Both of these teams really have a lot of young talent. They've been accumulating those high draft picks, and now these kids are starting to mature and blossom into legitimate NHL stars. I mean, just think about the young talent that is on both of these rosters. Getting to see Macklin Celebrini going up on the one side, and then you look over at Seattle, and you've got Matty Beniers and Shane Wright, and it's just great to see these two teams kind of bouncing back and starting to become competitive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Matty Beniers taking a huge leap forward this year has been really good. And I think, Shane Wright, he's doing solidly from a points perspective, but just to see how his career has developed after he had so many doubters, I think, to performing really solidly this season, and 4 goals so far. But I think he'll get a lot more as this season progresses. So yeah, a really fun Saturday night sandwiched in between those 2 global series games for Pens Preds to look forward to this weekend, as well as the rest of the calendar of NHL games to watch this weekend. Gil will be back on Monday to talk to some hosts around the Locked On NHL channel about what's going on with their teams. And we will be back next Friday to kind of look at the big stories of the day and have new games to watch for y'all. Thanks for making Locked On NHL your first listen today. For your next listen on this very, very stream, you can check out Locked On NHL Game Night. It's every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. You'll get local analysis on a national scale with NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL. It's on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great weekend, everyone.